Thorne sat motionless in his study, his fingers wrapped around the crystal tumbler of whiskey he'd poured minutes ago but hadn't touched. The call that had come through moments earlier still echoed in his mind. Harrison Sterling was dead. Sir? His housekeeper's tentative voice interrupted his thoughts. Mrs. Thorne is asking for you. He rose from his leather chair, straightening his tailored suit. Tell her I'll be there shortly. His voice carried no emotion, a skill he'd mastered over years of business negotiations. The mansion's opulent halls felt hollow as he made his way to the main living room. The decor, chosen by Sarah, screamed of wealth but lacked warmth, much like their marriage. He found his wife pacing, her Louboutin heels clicking against the marble floor. Finally, Sarah's voice dripped with barely contained excitement rather than grief. Daddy's dead. She didn't even attempt to fake sadness. Caleb observed her carefully, noting how her perfectly manicured hands clutched her phone. I heard. My condolences, she scoffed, tossing her golden hair over her shoulder. Please, spare me the formalities. We both know what this means. Her lips curved into a predatory smile. I'm about to become one of the richest women in New England. Your father's body isn't even cold yet, Sarah. Oh, don't be so dramatic. She was already typing on her phone. I need to call Marcus. He'll handle all the legal aspects of the inheritance. The name struck a chord, but Caleb maintained his composure. Marcus Vance, the snake in an expensive suit who'd been appearing at their social functions with increasing frequency. He'd noticed the lingering glances between Marcus and his wife, the accidental touches, the private jokes. I'm sure Marcus will be thorough, Caleb replied, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. Sarah barely acknowledged him as she swept out of the room, her phone already pressed to her ear. Marcus? Yes, it's happened. Come over right away. Alone again, Caleb allowed himself a moment of reflection. He thought back to their wedding day, 10 years ago. He'd been younger then, still believing in love despite his harsh upbringing. The memory surfaced unwanted. You look beautiful, he'd whispered as Sarah walked down the aisle, her white gown worth more than his yearly salary at the time. She'd smiled then, a genuine smile that he hadn't seen in years. The sharp ring of his phone pulled him from the memory. The caller ID displayed, Evelyn Sterling. Evelyn, he answered, his voice softening slightly for the woman who'd been more of a mother to him than anyone else. Caleb, I just heard about Harrison. Evelyn's warm voice carried genuine concern. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Sarah's already planning how to spend her inheritance. That doesn't surprise me. A pause. Listen, there's something you should know. I've been monitoring some. Concerning communications, Caleb's grip tightened on his phone. Go on. Marcus Vance has been meeting with Sarah regularly at the Sterling & Sterling law firm. They're not just casual meetings, Caleb. They've been discussing divorce strategies. The whiskey glass shattered in Caleb's free hand, but he didn't flinch as blood dripped onto the expensive carpet. How long? At least 6 months. There's more. They've been intimate. I have proof. Caleb's voice turned to ice. Send me everything. Already done. Check your secure email. Evelyn hesitated. What are you going to do? What I've always done, Evelyn. Survive. And make them regret their choices. He ended the call and walked to his private bathroom, methodically cleaning the cut on his hand. In the mirror, he saw the reflection of the orphaned boy who'd fought his way out of poverty, who'd built himself up from nothing. The boy who'd learned early that betrayal came with a price. The sound of laughter floated up from downstairs. Sarah's musical tones intertwined with a deeper, male voice. Marcus had arrived quickly. Caleb's lips curved into a dangerous smile as he opened his laptop to check Evelyn's email. The photographs were explicit, leaving no doubt about the affair. Text messages revealed their plans. Wait for Harrison's death, secure the inheritance, then discard the husband who'd outlived his usefulness. He picked up his phone again, dialing a different number. Ms. Reyes? This is Caleb Thorne. I need your services. Yes, full background investigation. Target name is Marcus Vance. The voices downstairs grew louder, more animated. Caleb could picture them in the living room, already celebrating their perceived victory. They had no idea what was coming. A text message lit up his phone. Dinner is served, darling. Marcus is joining us. Isn't that wonderful? Sarah. Caleb adjusted his tie and headed downstairs, his face a mask of polite interest. The dining room gleamed with crystal and silver, their housekeeper having set an elaborate table despite the short notice. Ah, Caleb. Marcus stood as he entered, all white teeth and false sympathy. My condolences on your loss. Harrison was a giant in our field. Thank you, Marcus. Caleb took his seat at the head of the table. I'm sure you'll help Sarah navigate the complexities of inheritance law. Of course. Marcus shared a quick glance with Sarah. It's the least I can do for a friend. The meal progressed with superficial conversation, but underneath, Caleb could feel the currents of deception. He watched as Sarah touched Marcus's hand when passing the wine, saw their shared looks of triumph. Finally, Sarah set down her fork with deliberate care. Caleb, we need to talk. Do we? He dabbed his mouth with his napkin, the picture of cultured sophistication.
Yes.
She straightened in her chair, feeding off Marcus's encouraging nod. I'm done with this marriage. You're a burden now. I'm too rich for you. Goodbye. The silence that followed her declaration was deafening. The housekeeper, who'd been about to serve dessert, quickly retreated to the kitchen. Caleb took a slow sip of his wine, savoring the expensive vintage. When he spoke, his voice was calm, almost amused. Don't regret this later, sweetheart. Sarah's triumphant expression faltered slightly at his reaction. What's that supposed to mean? It means, he set down his glass, that you should be very careful about your next moves. Marcus stepped in, his lawyer's instincts sensing danger. Now, Caleb, let's be reasonable. These things happen. We can make this painless. Painless? Caleb's laugh was cold. Like how you made it painless for Elena Morgan when you stole her family's company, or for James Chun when you manipulated his accounts. Marcus's face paled. How did you? Knowledge is power, Marcus. Something you should have remembered before trying to play games with me. Caleb stood, adjusting his cuffs. Enjoy your evening. I'm sure you have much to discuss. As he left the dining room, he heard Sarah's angry whisper. What did he mean? What did you do to those people? In his study, Caleb opened his laptop again. New emails from Ava Reyes were already arriving, detailing Marcus's past indiscretions, his buried secrets, his victims. On another screen, his investment portfolio showed the careful movements he'd been making for months, preparing for this moment. His phone buzzed with a message from Evelyn. Meeting with Zeke tomorrow. Harrison's will is going to surprise them. Caleb smiled in the darkness of his study. He'd learned long ago that revenge was a dish best served cold, and he had all the ingredients for a feast of retribution. Outside his study, he could hear Sarah and Marcus arguing, their voices rising with panic as their perfect plan began to show its first cracks. But Caleb didn't need to listen. He already knew how this story would end. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a photo, him and Harrison Sterling, taken just 3 months ago during a private meeting. Both men were smiling, but these were real smiles, knowing smiles. They had understood each other in the end. The game begins, Caleb whispered to himself, and started typing his next set of instructions to Ava Reyes. Chapter 2. The Serpent's Sting. The divorce proceedings moved with brutal efficiency through the New York judicial system. Sarah sat in the modernist conference room of Sterling and Sterling, her crimson nails drumming against the polished table as Marcus prepared their final strategy. It's almost too easy, she purred, watching Marcus arrange the documents. He's not even fighting back. Marcus loosened his Italian silk tie, a smile playing on his lips. That's because he knows he can't win. Your father's fortune is practically in your hands. The conference room door opened, and Judge Eleanor Vance entered, her stern features betraying nothing as she took her seat. She developed a reputation for being merciless with gold diggers and greedy divorces, but Sarah wasn't concerned. She was the wrong party here. At least, that's what their carefully crafted narrative suggested. Let's proceed, Judge Vance announced, her voice crisp. Caleb sat quietly throughout the proceedings, his face impassive. He offered no objections, made no demands, simply signed where indicated. His silence unnerved Sarah more than any argument could have. Mr. Thorne, Judge Vance addressed him directly. You understand that by signing these papers, you're waiving your right to contest the division of assets? I understand perfectly, Your Honor. His voice carried a hint of amusement that made Marcus shift uncomfortably in his seat. The judge's eyes narrowed slightly, but she continued with the proceedings. Within an hour, it was done. Sarah and Caleb were no longer married. As they left the courthouse, Sarah couldn't contain her excitement. Finally, now we just need to collect Daddy's money, and we can start our new life together. Marcus wrapped an arm around her waist, but his eyes scanned the street nervously. Something about Caleb's behavior bothered him. It had been too easy. A week passed in a blur of celebration and planning. Sarah had already picked out a penthouse in Manhattan, drafted plans for a summer home in the Hamptons, and scheduled meetings with interior designers. Then the call came. Mrs. Thorne? Pardon me, Miss Sterling. Ezekiel Hayes's voice crackled through the phone, carrying an odd note of amusement. I believe we need to discuss Clause 7.3 of your father's will. Sarah rolled her eyes, sprawled across her hotel suite's chaise lounge. Whatever it is can wait. I'm busy planning my new life. Oh, I don't think this can wait. Zeke's chuckle sent an unexpected chill down her spine. You might want to check it before celebrating your ill-gotten gains. How dare you? Sarah sat up straight, her voice rising. I'm Harrison Sterling's daughter. That money is mine by right. Rights can be conditional. The lawyer's voice dripped with satisfaction. Your father was quite specific about certain requirements. The phone call ended with Sarah's scream of rage. Marcus rushed in from the adjacent room, finding her throwing crystal glasses against the wall. What happened? He demanded, grabbing her wrists to stop her destruction. That bastard Zeke. He's saying there's some clause. We need to go to the office. Now. Meanwhile, in a quiet office across town, Caleb sat with Evelyn and Zeke, listening to the recording of the call. His smile grew as Ezekiel played back Sarah's increasingly panicked responses. You should have seen Harrison's face when we drafted this clause, Zeke remarked, pouring himself a bourbon. He knew exactly what she would do. Evelyn touched Caleb's shoulder gently. Harrison saw through her facade long before the end. He knew you were the son he'd always wanted. The memory of that final meeting with Harrison Sterling surfaced in Caleb's mind. They think I'm a fool, Harrison had said, his illness making his voice rough but his mind sharp as ever. My daughter married you for ambition, but you've proven yourself worthy of far more than that. You understand what it means to build something, to protect it. I never wanted her money, Caleb had replied honestly. No, you didn't. That's exactly why you deserve it. Harrison's smile had been fierce. Let's give them enough rope to hang themselves. Back in the present, Zeke pulled out the will, his finger tracing the now infamous Clause 7.3. If my daughter, Seraphina Thorne, chooses to divorce her husband, Caleb Thorne, regardless of the reason or circumstance, before or after my death, she will forfeit her entire inheritance. The inheritance will then transfer fully to Caleb Thorne, who I consider my true and only deserving heir, for he is a man of character, courage, and integrity. They should be arriving at the office any minute, Evelyn noted, checking her watch. Caleb stood, straightening his jacket. Shall we go watch the show? They arrived at Sterling and Sterling's main office just as Sarah and Marcus burst through the doors. Sarah's face was flushed with anger, her designer outfit slightly disheveled in her panic. Where is it? She demanded, storming up to Zeke's desk. Show me the will. Zeke made a show of slowly retrieving the document, his movements deliberately unhurried. Of course, Miss Sterling. Though I should warn you. Just give it to me. She snatched the papers from his hands, Marcus reading over her shoulder. The color drained from both their faces as they reached Clause 7.3. Marcus grabbed the document, reading it again, his legal mind desperately searching for loopholes. This can't be legal, he stuttered. Oh, but it is. Caleb's voice cut through their panic. They spun to find him leaning against the doorframe, Evelyn at his side. Harrison had it reviewed by multiple firms. Ironclad. You. Sarah lunged at him, but Evelyn stepped between them. You planned this. No, sweetheart. Caleb's voice was soft, but carried enough venom to stop her in her tracks. You planned this. Your father just saw it coming. Marcus's legal training kicked in. We'll contest it. There are ways. By all means, Caleb interrupted, his smile growing. Contest it. Drag this through the courts. Let everyone see exactly who and what you are. I'm sure your other clients would be fascinated by the publicity. The threat hung in the air. Marcus's reputation was his lifeline, and they all knew it. Sarah's legs gave out, and she collapsed into a chair. This can't be happening. This can't. The recording captured it all. Her breakdown, Marcus's futile legal threats, the moment reality crashed down around them. Caleb watched it play out with the satisfaction of a chess master seeing checkmate unfold. Your father wanted you to learn something about value, he told his ex-wife as she sat there, shell-shocked. About earning what you have. I'd say this lesson is just beginning. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Marcus? Those files you've been trying to bury? The ones about Elena Morgan and the others? They're not as buried as you think. Marcus's face went ashen. You wouldn't. Try me. Caleb's voice could have frozen hell itself. You both played a dangerous game. Now you'll learn the rules. As they left the office, Evelyn glanced at Caleb. That was rather theatrical. They wanted a show, he replied, straightening his cufflinks. I'm just getting started. Chapter 3. The Price of Pride. The Manhattan penthouse vibrated with Sarah's rage as she hurled another designer vase against the wall. Marcus ducked, his perfectly styled hair disheveled, his collar loosened in distress. You promised me, Sarah screamed, jabbing a finger at his chest. You said this divorce was foolproof, that there was no way I could lose my inheritance. Marcus backed away, his usual smooth demeanor cracking. How was I supposed to know about that clause? Your father was always eccentric, but this? Eccentric? She laughed hysterically. He ruined me. And you. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. You were supposed to be the best lawyer in New York. The great Marcus Vance, who never loses a case. What a joke. In his Brooklyn apartment, Caleb sat at his desk, watching the feed from the hidden cameras Ava had installed in their penthouse. Ava, the shadow Reyes, stood behind him, her dark eyes missing nothing as she took notes. They're unraveling faster than expected, she observed, passing him a detailed dossier. Marcus has already contacted 3 different law firms specializing in trust litigation. Caleb flipped through the file, a smile playing on his lips. And all 3 turned him down. Apparently, your reputation precedes you. Ava's tone carried a hint of admiration. Plus, the evidence I gathered about his past. Let's just say no reputable firm wants to touch him. Back in the penthouse, Marcus paced frantically, his expensive shoes wearing paths in the plush carpet. Listen, there might be a way. I know people, judges, officials. We could create some doubt about the will's validity. Sarah spun to face him, her designer dress wrinkled from her outburst. Create doubt? Like you created doubt in Elena Morgan's case? Or James Chin's? Marcus froze. How do you know those names? Caleb mentioned them at dinner, remember? And now, suddenly, I'm getting emails. She grabbed her laptop, turning it to face him. Anonymous emails detailing exactly what you did to them. How you destroyed their lives, stole their companies, their homes. Those cases were sealed. Marcus's voice rose in panic. Well, they're not sealed anymore, darling. Sarah's voice dripped venom. Did you think I wouldn't do my research once Caleb brought them up? Did you think I was just another stupid rich girl you could manipulate? In his apartment, Caleb nodded appreciatively at another screen showing his stock portfolio. While Sarah and Marcus self-destructed, he'd been quietly consolidating his new assets, transforming Harrison's old-world industrial empire into something more modern. Evelyn entered, carrying fresh coffee and a stack of documents. The board is impressed with your proposals for restructuring. They're particularly interested in the tech division expansion. Harrison knew the company needed to evolve. Caleb replied, signing the papers. He left me more than just money. He left me a legacy to build on. Speaking of building, Evelyn settled into a chair. Ava's team found something interesting in Marcus's private servers. It seems our snake has been embezzling from his own firm. Caleb's eyes glinted. Send the evidence to his partners. Anonymously, of course. Meanwhile, the penthouse argument had escalated. Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm as she reached for another vase. Stop it. We need to think clearly. There must be something we can use against him. Use against him? Sarah laughed bitterly. He's perfect. The orphan boy who worked his way up, who loved me despite my flaws, who earned my father's respect She choked on the words. While I proved every terrible thing Daddy ever said about me, then we'll destroy that perfect image, Marcus snarled, his desperation showing. Everyone has secrets. We just need to find his. In Brooklyn, Caleb watched this exchange with cold amusement. They still don't understand, he murmured to Evelyn. I never hid my secrets. I turned them into armor. Evelyn nodded, remembering the scared but determined boy she'd first met, who'd worked as a janitor to put himself through school, who'd learned to navigate high society by studying its weaknesses. You built yourself from nothing once. Now you can build something greater. The screen showed Marcus making frantic phone calls, each one shorter than the last as his professional network crumbled. Sarah sat amid the wreckage of her tantrum, mascara streaking her face as she scrolled through her contacts, finding friend after friend suddenly unreachable. Your father was right about one thing, Evelyn said softly. Character is destiny. Caleb stood, walking to his window overlooking the river. The same river he'd seen every day as a child, dreaming of a better life. I gave them exactly what they wanted, a target they thought they could destroy. They never questioned why I made it so easy. In the penthouse, Marcus's phone buzzed with a message. His face went pale as he read it. My partners, they're calling an emergency meeting. Something about financial irregularities. Sarah barely looked up from her phone. Daddy's oldest friends won't even take my calls. 30 years of connections, gone in a day. This isn't over, Marcus declared, but his voice shook. I'll figure something out. I always do. Caleb's phone pinged with updates. Marcus's firm launching an internal investigation, Sarah's credit cards being declined, their social circles contracting as news of their schemes spread through carefully planted rumors. Should I proceed with phase 2? Ava asked, her hand hovering over her laptop. Not yet. Caleb turned from the window, his expression resolute. Let them feel this first. Let them understand exactly what they've lost. He picked up a framed photo of his parents, a worn, faded image of two people who died leaving him nothing but principles and determination. This is just the beginning, he told their smiling faces. You taught me that justice takes time, that revenge is worthless without purpose. In the penthouse, the cameras caught Marcus gathering his things, making excuses about meetings and strategies. Sarah didn't even look at him as he left, her world shrinking to the phone in her hand as she desperately sought help from her dwindling list of allies. Evelyn, Caleb called softly, arrange a meeting with the tech division heads for tomorrow. It's time to start building something new. And them? She gestured to the screens showing the destruction of his enemies. They chose their path. His voice carried no emotion, no anger, just cold certainty. Now they'll walk it to the end. The first act of their drama was ending, but Caleb knew this was just the foundation. He'd learned long ago that true power wasn't in the punch. It was in knowing exactly where and when to strike. As he watched his enemy's world crumble, he felt no joy, no satisfaction, only the quiet certainty that justice, real justice, was finally being served. The sun set over Brooklyn, painting the river in shades of gold and crimson. In his apartment, Caleb began preparing for tomorrow, for the future he would build from the ashes of betrayal. In their penthouse, Sarah and Marcus faced their first night of many in a world where their names no longer opened doors, where their schemes no longer assured success. The game wasn't over, but the rules had changed. And Caleb Thorne, the man they'd underestimated, the man they tried to destroy, was now the one writing them. Chapter 4. The Unmasking. The Manhattan Children's Foundation Gala buzzed with New York's elite, their jewelry glinting under crystal chandeliers. Sarah gripped Marcus's arm too tightly. She scanned the crowd. He has to come, she muttered. This is the biggest charity event of the season. Marcus tugged at his bow tie, uncomfortable in the spotlight. His usual confidence had eroded over the past months as clients mysteriously disappeared and old cases resurfaced. Maybe we should. The crowd's murmur shifted, heads turning toward the entrance. Caleb Thorne stood in the doorway, but not the quiet, reserved man they remembered. This Caleb commanded attention in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, his presence drawing people like moths to flame. "Who's that with him?" Sarah hissed, watching a striking woman in a burgundy gown step alongside him. "Dr. Eleanor Vance," Marcus whispered, his face draining of color. "My ex-wife." Eleanor's laugh carried across the room as Caleb whispered something in her ear. She transformed from the broken woman Marcus had left behind, now radiating confidence and power. "Your ex-wife?" Sarah's voice rose sharply. "You never mentioned." "It wasn't relevant," Marcus snapped, but his eyes followed Eleanor's movement with undisguised fear. Across the room, Eleanor smiled at Caleb. "He looks ready to bolt." "Let him squirm," Caleb replied, accepting 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter. "Benjamin?" A voice crackled in their earpieces. "All systems running. Ava's team is in position." In a hidden surveillance room, Benjamin, the ghost Carter, monitored multiple screens showing different angles of the gala. His fingers flew over keyboards, ensuring their digital net was perfectly placed. "Their phones are compromised," he reported. "Starting data extraction now." Caleb guided Eleanor through the crowd, accepting greetings from New York's powerful. Each handshake, each conversation was strategic, building the image of a man who'd not only survived betrayal but thrived. "Caleb," a voice called out, Trevor Montgomery, CEO of the largest tech consortium on the East Coast. "That proposal you sent over? Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. We need to talk details. Tomorrow at my office?" Caleb suggested smoothly. "I'd love to discuss the ethical AI applications." Sarah watched these exchanges with growing desperation. Each person who greeted Caleb turned their backs on her and Marcus, the social exile becoming more apparent with each snub. "We need to talk to him," she decided, pulling Marcus forward. "If we could just explain." "I wouldn't," a cool voice interrupted. They turned to find Eleanor studying them with clinical interest. "He's not in a forgiving mood." Marcus stepped forward. "Eleanor, Save it." She cut him off with a gesture. "I'm not here for your excuses. I'm here to watch you fall." "Is that what this is?" Marcus's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Revenge?" "No, Marcus. This is justice." Eleanor's smile was razor-sharp. "Remember Elena Morgan? James Chun? All those lives you destroyed? They send their regards." Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm. "What is she talking about?" "Oh, he never told you?" Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "About how he built his practice. The families he destroyed? The money he stole?" Around them, conversations quieted as people strained to listen. Marcus felt the weight of curious stares, saw phones recording discreetly. "Those cases were sealed," he growled. "Were they?" Eleanor's voice carried just far enough to reach interested ears. "How fascinating. Perhaps someone should investigate that." Across the room, Caleb engaged with the charity's board members, but his earpiece caught everything. "Benjamin?" "Uploading now," the tech expert confirmed. "Local news sites will have the story in 3, 2, 1. Phones began buzzing throughout the ballroom. People pulled out devices, eyes widening at breaking news alerts about prominent lawyer Marcus Vance's questionable past. "My God," a society matron gasped nearby. "The Morgan case. He stole their entire pension fund?" Sarah backed away from Marcus, reality crashing down. "What did you do?" "Nothing that can be proved," he snarled, but his eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal's. Actually, Caleb's voice cut through their panic as he approached. "Everything can be proved. Ask your partners about the audit they're conducting. Ask about the offshore accounts Benjamin found." "You," Marcus lunged forward, but security materialized instantly, blocking his path. "Careful," Caleb advised coldly. "Assault charges wouldn't help your situation." Sarah tried a different approach, stepping toward him with pleading eyes. "Caleb, please. We can work something out. I was wrong, I see that now." "Save your performance," he cut her off. "The cameras aren't rolling anymore." As if on cue, Benjamin's voice reported. All social media feeds captured. Trending on Twitter in 3, 2. Eleanor moved to Caleb's side, her presence a deliberate twist of the knife in Marcus's gut. You taught me something valuable, Marcus. About power. About consequences. I'll fight this, Marcus threatened, but his voice shook. I'll bury you all. With what resources? Caleb asked mildly. Your firm's partners are reading some very interesting emails right now about certain creative accounting practices. Missing client funds. Marcus's phone buzzed. His face went ashen as he read the message. No, they can't. Emergency partner meeting tomorrow morning, Caleb supplied helpfully. I'd pack up your office tonight. Security began moving them toward the exit, the crowd parting to create a walk of shame. Sarah stumbled in her designer heels, mascara streaking as reality set in. You're destroying us, she accused Caleb. No, he corrected her, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom. You destroyed yourselves. I'm just providing evidence. As they were escorted out, Eleanor raised her champagne glass. To justice, she said quietly. To consequences, Caleb replied, clinking his glass against hers. Around them, the gala resumed, but the buzz was different now. Power had shifted, alliances had reformed, and everyone knew it. In his hidden command center, Benjamin watched the aftermath unfold across social media. Phase 1 complete, he reported. Their reputations are in free fall. Good. Caleb's voice was cold in his earpiece. Start Phase 2. Let's see how Marcus handles real scrutiny. The gala continued late into the night, but its true purpose had been achieved. In one evening, Caleb had demonstrated his power. Eleanor had her first taste of revenge, and their enemy's carefully constructed world began to crumble. As Caleb drove Eleanor home, she studied his profile. You're not done, are you? Not even close, he confirmed, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. That was just the opening move. Good, she said firmly. They deserve everything that's coming. In their penthouse, Sarah and Marcus faced each other across a room that suddenly felt less luxurious and more like a prison. What do we do? Sarah whispered. Marcus's phone buzzed again. Another partner demanding explanations. We fight back, he declared, but his voice lacked conviction. Fight back? Sarah laughed hysterically. Against what? The truth? The truth. It hung between them like a sword, ready to fall. And in his command center, Benjamin Carter watched their desperate scrambling with professional detachment, recording everything for the next phase of Caleb's plan. The night ended with 4 people in very different positions, Caleb and Eleanor celebrating the first step of their revenge, while Sarah and Marcus faced the beginning of their downfall. The game had changed, and only one side knew all the rules. Chapter 5. The Web Titans. Marcus Vance's law office, once a symbol of his success, now felt like a mausoleum. He sat behind his mahogany desk, staring at his computer screen as emails poured in. Clients terminating their contracts, partners demanding explanations, reporters seeking comments. Mr. Vance? His secretary's voice crackled through the intercom. Detective Ramirez is here to see you. Marcus straightened his tie, attempting to project his usual confidence. Send him in. Detective Adrian Ramirez entered, his weathered face revealing nothing as he surveyed the office. He carried a thick file under his arm, and his badge glinted under the office lights. Mr. Vance, Ramirez's voice was professionally neutral. We need to discuss some irregularities in your firm's accounts. All our financial records are in order, Marcus replied automatically, but his fingers twitched toward his desk drawer, where a USB drive contained what he thought were his escape plans. Are they? Ramirez opened his file. Because we have evidence suggesting otherwise. The Morgan family's pension fund, for instance. Interesting routing through the Cayman Islands. In his hidden surveillance hub, Benjamin Carter watched the interview through Marcus's office cameras. He's going for the USB, he reported to Caleb. Let him. Caleb's voice held cold amusement. That drive contains everything Detective Ramirez needs. Marcus pulled out the drive, unaware that its contents had been altered days ago by Benjamin's team. Detective, I have documents proving everything was handled legally. I'm sure you do. Ramirez took the drive. We'll add this to evidence. Across town, Sarah paced in their penthouse, her phone buzzing with notifications from a viral video. Ava Reyes had done her job well. Crystal clear footage showed Marcus entering a high-end hotel with a young woman, definitely not Sarah. "You bastard!" she screamed when Marcus finally returned. "While we're losing everything, you're sleeping with some tramp?" "It's not what you think," Marcus started, but stopped when Sarah threw her phone at him. The screen showed not just the hotel footage, but emails. Dozens of emails. "Not what I think." Sarah's voice rose hysterically. "The emails to your offshore accounts? The messages to other women? The evidence of everything you stole?" "Those emails were private." Marcus's face contorted with rage. "That bastard Thorne hacked." "No, Marcus," a new voice interrupted. They turned to find Ava Reyes standing in their doorway, holding up a badge. "Your security was compromised months ago by your own IT team. They've been cooperating with our investigation." "Investigation?" Sarah whispered. "Federal investigation," Ava clarified, enjoying their shock. "Into fraud, embezzlement, and a dozen other charges." "Mr. Vance, you really should have been more careful with your digital footprint." Marcus lunged for his laptop, but Ava's team was already entering the penthouse, armed with warrants. "Those files are privileged," he shouted as they began seizing devices. "Not anymore." Ava smiled coldly. "Your firm's partners voted an hour ago. You're out, Marcus. They're cooperating fully with our investigation." In his office, Caleb watched the raid through multiple camera feeds. Eleanor sat beside him, her face showing grim satisfaction. "His entire house of cards," she mused, "falling in one day." "Not quite one day," Caleb corrected. "This took months of planning." "Benjamin?" "All his hidden accounts are being flagged by financial authorities," Benjamin reported. "His assets are being frozen as we speak." Sarah backed away from the chaos in her penthouse, her designer clothes suddenly feeling like a costume. "I need to get out of here," she muttered, grabbing her purse. But as she reached the private elevator, she found it disabled. The regular elevator opened to reveal more federal agents. Behind them stood Evelyn, her expression stern. "Going somewhere, Mrs. Thorne?" Evelyn's use of her married name was deliberate. "There are some questions about your involvement in certain financial transactions." "I didn't know anything," Sarah protested. "The joint accounts suggest otherwise," Evelyn replied. "The transfers you authorized? The documents you signed?" Marcus, watching Sarah's attempted escape, felt his last alliance crumbling. "You knew?" he demanded. "About the accounts?" "Of course she knew," Ava interjected, holding up more documents. "She was quite helpful in moving funds around." "Weren't you, Mrs. Thorne?" Sarah's face crumpled as her carefully maintained facade shattered. "Marcus told me they were legal tax shelters." "Throwing me under the bus already?" Marcus snarled. "After everything I did for you? Did for me?" Sarah screamed back. "You used me. Used my name, my connections, my money." Their argument echoed through the penthouse as agents continued gathering evidence. In the security feed, Benjamin captured it all, adding to their growing mountain of evidence. Outside the building, news vans began arriving, tipped off by carefully planted leaks. Reporters gathered as federal agents carried out boxes of documents and devices. "Mr. Vance," they called as Marcus was escorted out. "Is it true you stole from your clients?" "Mrs. Thorne, did you know about the fraud? What about the Morgan family pension?" In his office, Caleb stood watching the media frenzy unfold on multiple screens. "Send the rest of the evidence to Detective Ramirez," he instructed Benjamin. "It's time for Phase 3. "The senator?" Eleanor asked, referring to Samuel Reed, Marcus's political protector. "He's next," Caleb confirmed. "His connection to Marcus's schemes won't stay hidden much longer." As night fell over New York, the city buzzed with the scandal. Marcus and Sarah's public fight in the street was captured by dozens of cameras, their desperate accusations against each other spreading across social media. "You ruined everything," Sarah screamed, trying to attack Marcus as police held them apart. "You knew what you were getting into," he shouted back. "You're as guilty as I am." From his office window, Caleb watched the scene unfold. His phone buzzed with a message from Ava, all evidence secured. "They're both singing like birds, trying to blame each other." "Good," he replied. Make sure Detective Ramirez gets everything about Senator Reed's involvement. It's time to expand the investigation. The night ended with Marcus and Sarah in separate police stations, their empire in ruins, their alliance shattered. But for Caleb, this was just another step in his carefully orchestrated plan. The real target, Senator Reed, was still to come, and with him, the entire corrupt system that had protected Marcus for so long. Eleanor touched his arm gently. You're thinking about the senator? I'm thinking about justice, Caleb replied, his eyes cold. Real justice, not the kind that can be bought and sold by men like Reed and Marcus. As the city lights sparkled below, Caleb's team continued their work, preparing for the next phase of their plan. The web had tightened around Marcus and Sarah, but the bigger prey was still to come. And Caleb Thorne was nothing if not patient in his pursuit of vengeance. Chapter 6. The Fall. The New York County Courthouse buzzed with anticipation. Reporters packed the hallways, their cameras ready to capture the downfall of Marcus Vance. Inside the courtroom, Benjamin Carter monitored the digital displays they'd set up for the prosecution, each screen ready to reveal years of corruption. Senator Reed just arrived. Ava's voice crackled through Benjamin's earpiece. Back entrance with 3 lawyers. As expected, Caleb replied from his position in the gallery. Is everything in place? All evidence uploaded and verified, Benjamin confirmed. The senator's entire communication history with Marcus is ready to go. Marcus sat at the defense table, his expensive suit now looking shabby after weeks in custody. His legal team had abandoned him once the extent of his crimes became public, leaving him with a court-appointed defender who could barely meet his eyes. Senator Samuel Reed slipped into the back row, his usual confidence dimmed. He'd come to watch his former ally's trial, unaware that he was walking into Caleb's trap. The bailiff's voice rang out, "All rise." The Court of the State of New York is now in session, the Honorable Judge Michael Chin presiding. As the proceedings began, Caleb caught Eleanor's eye across the courtroom. She nodded slightly. Everything was ready. The prosecutor, Sarah Martinez, approached the podium. Your Honor, the state will prove that Marcus Vance engaged in a systematic pattern of fraud, embezzlement, and corruption spanning over a decade. But more than that, we'll prove that his crimes were protected and facilitated by powerful figures in our government. Senator Reed shifted in his seat. Marcus's head snapped up. Objection. Marcus's defender called out. These allegations are beyond the scope. Overruled. Judge Chin interrupted. Continue, Ms. Martinez. The prosecutor gestured, and Benjamin activated the first display. Bank records filled the screens, showing transfers between Marcus's accounts and offshore holdings. Mr. Vance didn't act alone, Martinez continued. He had help from the highest levels. Senator Samuel Reed. Objection. Reed's lawyers jumped up. Used his position on the banking committee to hide these transactions. The courtroom erupted. Reed tried to leave, but federal agents appeared at the doors. Your Honor, Martinez raised her voice above the chaos. We have evidence of Senator Reed's direct involvement in the Morgan family pension theft. Benjamin brought up the next set of documents, emails, phone records, bank transfers. Reed's name appeared highlighted throughout. The government requests that Senator Reed be taken into custody as a co-conspirator, Martinez announced. As agents moved toward Reed, Marcus stood up. Wait, I can explain everything. Sit down, Mr. Vance, Judge Chin ordered. You don't understand. Marcus's voice rose desperately. Senator Reed orchestrated everything. I have proof. Reed's face turned purple. You treacherous snake. Order. Judge Chin's gavel cracked like a gunshot. In the gallery, Sarah watched with horror as Marcus began detailing their entire operation, throwing Reed and others under the bus in a desperate attempt to save himself. The Morgan pension was Reed's idea, Marcus babbled. He needed funds for his campaign. I just moved the money. Benjamin's screens filled with corroborating evidence as Marcus spoke, each confession backed by documents, emails, and recordings that Caleb's team had gathered. Your Honor, Martinez interjected. In light of Mr. Vance's confession, the state moves to add Senator Reed as a defendant in this case. Reed lunged forward. You can't do this. I'm a United States Senator. Not for long, Caleb murmured, watching as federal agents handcuffed both Reed and Marcus. The courtroom dissolved into chaos. Reporters rushed out to file their stories. Cameras flashed as Senator Reed and Marcus were led away in handcuffs, their decades of corruption exposed to the world. Sarah tried to slip out during the confusion, but Ava blocked her path. "Mrs. Thorne, the FBI has some questions about your role in all this." "I didn't know anything," Sarah protested weakly. "The evidence suggests otherwise," Ava replied, nodding to another agent who stepped forward with handcuffs. From his seat, Caleb watched his ex-wife being led away. She looked back once, her face a mask of desperation and hatred. "Mr. Thorne," Martinez approached him as the courtroom cleared. "Thank you for your cooperation in this case. Your evidence was instrumental." "Justice needed to be served," he replied simply. Later, in his penthouse office, Caleb watched the media coverage with his team. Every channel showed Marcus and Senator Reed's perp walk, their empires crumbling in real time. "Morgan Family Pension Fund recovered," scrolled one headline. "Senator Reed linked to decade of corruption," declared another. "Marcus Vance faces 30 years," stated a third. "They're turning on each other," Benjamin reported, monitoring their communications. "Reed's lawyers are offering deals. Marcus is confessing everything, and their other conspirators are running scared." Evelyn poured champagne for the team. "A toast? To justice?" "Not yet," Caleb replied, his eyes fixed on the screens. "This is just the beginning of their fall." Eleanor raised her glass anyway. "To consequences, then." "To consequences," the team echoed. In their holding cells, Marcus and Reed faced the ruins of their lives. Their phones rang unanswered as associates distanced themselves. Their accounts were frozen, their reputations destroyed, their power stripped away. Sarah sat in an interrogation room, mascara streaking her face as she realized no one was coming to help her. Her society friends had vanished, her accounts were sealed, and her name was toxic in the circles she'd once ruled. "Phase 3 complete," Benjamin reported to Caleb. "Their entire network is exposed. The FBI is moving on their other accomplices." Caleb stood at his window, looking out over the city. The same city where he'd once been powerless, where men like Marcus and Reed had preyed on the vulnerable. Now they would face true justice. "Mr. Thorne?" Ava appeared in the doorway. "The press is requesting interviews." "No interviews," he replied. "Let the evidence speak for itself." He turned to his team, the people who'd helped him dismantle an empire of corruption. "The game isn't over," he reminded them. "But they'll never hurt anyone else." The screens behind him showed Marcus being processed into jail, Senator Reed facing a barrage of reporters, and Sarah being led to a police car. Their world had collapsed, and Caleb Thorne had orchestrated every moment of their fall. "Sir?" Benjamin called out. "The FBI just released the full evidence list. It's trending nationwide." Caleb picked up the photo of his parents, studying their faces as the news continued to break behind him. The second act of his revenge was complete, but the story wasn't over. Justice, real justice, demanded more than just their fall from grace. "Send everything to the victims' lawyers," he instructed. "Make sure they have what they need for civil suits." As night fell over New York, the city buzzed with the biggest scandal in decades. But in his penthouse, Caleb Thorne was already planning his next move, ensuring that his enemy's destruction would be absolute and final. Chapter 7. The Price of Betrayal. The federal courthouse hummed with tension as Marcus Vance, once New York's most feared lawyer, stood before Judge Michael Chin for sentencing. His designer suit had been replaced by prison orange, his confident smirk erased by weeks in detention. "Mr. Vance," Judge Chin's voice cut through the silence, "before I deliver your sentence, do you have anything to say to your victims?" Marcus turned to face the courtroom gallery, packed with faces he'd once dismissed as irrelevant. The Morgan family, James Chun, dozens of others whose lives he'd destroyed. His voice cracked. "I acted within the bounds of the law." "Objection, Your Honor," the prosecutor interrupted. The defendant's guilty plea acknowledged multiple violations of federal law. Sustained. Judge Chin's gaze hardened. "Mr. Vance, I remind you that you've already pleaded guilty to 37 counts of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." In the front row, Elena Morgan gripped her husband's hand. Their retirement savings, their children's college funds, all stolen by the man who now couldn't meet their eyes. The court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison, Judge Chen announced. Furthermore, you are ordered to forfeit all assets acquired through criminal activity. These funds will be used to make restitution to your victims. Marcus swayed on his feet. But my accounts, my properties, are forfeit, the judge finished. You built your fortune on the ruins of others' lives. Now they will rebuild their lives with the ruins of yours. As federal marshals led Marcus away, James Chun stood up. Hey, Viper. His voice carried years of pain. Remember when you said I'd never recover? Look who's lost everything now. Outside the courthouse, Sarah huddled in a threadbare coat, watching through the media crowd as her former lover was loaded into a prison transport. Her designer clothes and jewelry were long gone, sold to pay for basic necessities. Mrs. Thorne, a familiar voice made her spin around. Elena Morgan stood there, studying her with cold eyes. Or is it Miss Sterling now? I'm never sure what to call someone who's lost everything. I didn't know what Marcus was doing, Sarah stammered. No. Elena's laugh was bitter. You just spent our pension money on designer handbags and luxury vacations? Never questioned where it came from? Sarah backed away, but found her path blocked by other victims. Faces she'd once ignored at charity galas now surrounded her, each carrying years of accumulated rage. My children couldn't go to college because of you, one woman spat. My father died working because you stole his retirement, another added. I lost my house while you lived in a penthouse, a third chimed in. In his private office, Caleb watched the scene unfold through multiple camera feeds. Benjamin had ensured they captured everything. Marcus's sentencing, the victim's satisfaction, Sarah's confrontation with the consequences of her choices. The Morgan family's funds have been fully restored, Evelyn reported, reviewing documents on her tablet. With interest. The other restitution payments are being processed. Caleb nodded, his expression remaining stern. And the foundation? The Ethical Business Practices Foundation is ready to launch. We've already received applications from whistleblowers seeking protection and support. On another screen, Sarah stumbled through Manhattan streets, her world shrinking with each passing day. Her former friends ignored her calls. Society events that had once been her playground were now firmly closed to her. She tried sleeping in her car until it was repossessed, then moved between increasingly shabby hotels until those funds ran out too. Sir, Benjamin's voice came through the intercom. You might want to see this. A new feed showed Sarah attempting to enter an exclusive restaurant where she'd once been a regular. The maitre d's expression showed no recognition as he blocked her path. Please, they heard her beg. I just need a meal. I can wash dishes, anything. Management has instructed us not to serve you. The maitre d' replied coldly. Perhaps try the shelter on 34th Street? In the office, Evelyn watched Caleb's reaction carefully. You've achieved everything you planned. Marcus is in prison. Their corruption is exposed. Their victims are receiving justice. It's not about achievement, Caleb replied, his voice hard. It's about consequences. They chose their path, knowing it would destroy lives. Now they're experiencing what they inflicted on others. On the screens, Sarah's desperate wandering took her past the building where she'd once lived in luxury. Through surveillance cameras, they watched her sink onto a bench, reality crushing down on her. A passing woman dropped a few dollars in front of her, mistaking her for a homeless person. Sarah's hand trembled as she picked up the money, her pride finally breaking under the weight of necessity. The press wants a statement about the sentencing, Benjamin reported. No statements, Caleb decided. Let the victims speak. This is their moment of justice. In the courthouse parking garage, Elena Morgan and the other victims gathered, sharing their relief and vindication. I never thought we'd see this day, James Chen admitted. The mighty Marcus Vance, finally facing justice. It's not just justice, Elena replied. It's a message. No one is above the law, no matter how rich or powerful they think they are. As night fell over New York, the city's news channels ran endless coverage of Marcus's sentencing. Financial analysts dissected the fall of his empire. Legal experts debated the precedent set by the case. Social commentators discussed the broader implications for corporate accountability. In his office, Caleb stood looking out over the city where he'd orchestrated this justice. The photo of his parents sat on his desk, their faces watching as he fulfilled his promise to fight against those who abused power and privilege. "Your next appointment is here," Evelyn announced. "The tech division heads want to discuss the ethical AI initiative." Caleb straightened his tie, ready to focus on building something positive from the ashes of destruction. But as he turned to leave, the screen showed one final image. Sarah, curled up on her bench, facing her first night without shelter, without resources, without the protection her privilege had always provided. "Should we?" Evelyn hesitated. "No," Caleb cut her off. "She chose this path. Let her walk it to the end." The day ended with justice served. Marcus behind bars, his victims restored, and Sarah facing the consequences of her choices. But for Caleb, this wasn't the end. It was a foundation for something larger, a transformation of the system that had allowed such corruption to flourish. He picked up his parents' photo, studying their faces one last time before heading into his meeting. They had taught him about justice, about standing up against those who abused power. Now he would build on that lesson, creating lasting change from the ruins of revenge. Chapter 8. Reconciliation and Renewal. Evelyn's home office reflected her practical nature, sleek, organized, and purposeful. She sat across from Caleb, watching him review the latest reports on his ethical business foundation. "The Morgan family wants to contribute," she noted, sliding another document across the desk. "They want to help other victims of financial fraud." Caleb's expression remained stern as he studied the proposal. Their experience could be valuable. They understand what victims need. "Caleb," Evelyn's voice softened slightly, "you've achieved what you set out to do. Marcus is in prison, his victims have justice, and your company is transforming the industry. Perhaps it's time to what?" His tone carried a sharp edge. "To let go of the anger. You've carried it long enough." He stood, moving to the window. "Anger kept me focused, made me strong." "No," Evelyn corrected firmly. "You were always strong. Anger just gave you a target." She picked up a file from her desk. "Speaking of targets, the tech division has some interesting developments. They need a leader who can focus on the future, not the past." She handed him the file. Inside were proposals for new AI ethics protocols, innovative security measures, systems designed to protect vulnerable investors. Catherine Chun developed these, Evelyn mentioned casually. "She's brilliant. Graduated top of her class at MIT. Turned down offers from major tech firms to work on ethical AI development." Caleb flipped through Catherine's proposals, his interest clearly piqued. The technical specifications were flawless, but it was the underlying philosophy that caught his attention, using technology to prevent others from suffering what Marcus's victims had endured. "Set up a meeting," he decided. The next day, Caleb sat in his office as Catherine Chun presented her ideas. She was younger than he'd expected, but her intelligence and passion were immediately apparent. "The problem isn't just technological," she explained, gesturing to her diagrams. "It's systemic. We need to build ethics into the foundation of financial systems, not add them as an afterthought." "Most companies won't want these restrictions," Caleb pointed out. Catherine's eyes flashed. "Most companies didn't watch their parents lose everything to financial predators. I did. That's why I developed these protocols." Caleb sat forward, reassessing her. "Your parents were victims?" "Morgan Stanley crash of '08. She nodded. "Dad lost his pension. Mom lost her savings. I was 12. Watched them rebuild from nothing." Her voice carried steel beneath its professional tone. "That's why I'm here, Mr. Thorne. You understand that technology without ethics is just another weapon for the powerful." Over the next weeks, Caleb found himself spending more time in the tech division. Catherine's insights challenged his thinking, pushing beyond revenge to prevention. She wasn't intimidated by his reputation or his intensity. "This code is too aggressive," she argued during one late-night session. Yes, it would catch fraud, but it would also paralyze legitimate transactions. "Better safe than sorry," he countered. "Better smart than safe," she shot back. "We're not trying to stop business, we're trying to make it ethical. There's a difference." Her dedication matched his own, but where his drive came from anger, hers came from hope. It was refreshing. Evelyn watched their interactions with quiet satisfaction. She saw how Catherine's presence began to shift Caleb's focus from punishment to prevention, from revenge to reform. The Foundation's first whistleblower protection case was successful, Evelyn reported one evening. Thanks to Catherine's security protocols, we kept their identity safe while exposing corporate fraud. She's good at what she does, Caleb acknowledged. She's good for you, Evelyn corrected. She reminds you there's more to justice than vengeance. The truth of this became clear during a crucial meeting with potential investors. Catherine was presenting their ethical AI framework when one investor interrupted. This is all very noble, he sneered, but business is business. Sometimes corners need to be cut. Caleb tensed, but before he could respond, Catherine stepped forward. My parents lost everything because of that attitude, she stated firmly. Mr. Thorne's foundation helps victims rebuild. But our technology? It prevents victims in the first place. That's not noble, sir. That's necessary. Later, as they reviewed the meeting notes, Caleb found himself studying Catherine's determined expression. You didn't back down, he observed. Neither did you, she replied. Everyone knows your story, Mr. Thorne, how you destroyed those who betrayed you. But that's not why I'm here. She met his gaze directly. I'm here because you're building something new, something that matters. It was then he realized Evelyn was right. The anger that had driven him, while justified, had served its purpose. Catherine represented something different, not an end to corruption, but a new beginning. Call me Caleb, he said finally. Her smile transformed her face. About time. In the weeks that followed, their late-night strategy sessions began to include dinner. Technical discussions evolved into personal conversations. Catherine's passion for protection matched his drive for justice, creating something neither had expected. You're smiling more, Evelyn observed one day. Am I? Catherine makes you think about the future, not just the past. It's good to see. She was right. Working with Catherine, developing systems to prevent others from suffering what Marcus's victims had endured, gave purpose to his power. Her presence reminded him that strength could build as well as destroy. During one evening as they refined their security protocols, Catherine glanced at him. You know what I admire about you? My vast fortune, he asked dryly. Your transformation, she corrected. You could have stayed focused on revenge, but you chose to create change instead. That takes more strength than destruction. Her words struck home. The anger that had driven him wasn't gone, but it had evolved into something more constructive. Catherine hadn't tried to soften him. She'd shown him how to use his strength to protect others. Later that night, in Evelyn's office, Caleb reviewed the Foundation's latest success stories. We've prevented 3 major fraud attempts this quarter, he noted. Catherine's algorithms caught them before any victims lost money. And how are you? Evelyn asked quietly. Caleb considered the question. The rage that had fueled his revenge had transformed into determined purpose. Catherine's influence hadn't weakened him. It had given his strength new direction. I'm ready, he said finally. Ready to build something new? Evelyn smiled, understanding the deeper meaning. Caleb hadn't lost his edge. He'd found a better use for it. And in Catherine, he'd found someone who understood that justice wasn't just about punishing the past, but protecting the future. The chapter ended not with the death of his anger, but with its evolution into something stronger. Caleb remained the man who had destroyed his enemies, but now he was also becoming someone who could create, protect, and perhaps even love again. Chapter 9. The Serpent's End, the Architect's New Beginning. The Thorne Tech headquarters rose against the Manhattan skyline, its innovative design a testament to its founder's transformation. Inside the main conference room, Caleb addressed his executive team, his presence commanding as ever. Our ethical AI framework has prevented 12 major fraud attempts this quarter, he announced, gesture highlighting the data on display. That's billions in potential losses stopped before anyone could be victimized. Benjamin Carter, now Chief Security Officer, pulled up another screen. The pattern recognition software Catherine developed is revolutionary. We're catching schemes before they can even launch. Speaking of launches, Evelyn interjected. The Foundation's latest initiative is ready. 10 new whistleblowers came forward last month alone. Caleb nodded, studying the reports. His company had become more than just successful. It had become a force for change. The same ruthless focus he'd once used for revenge now drove innovation and protection. Mr. Thorne? His assistant appeared at the door. There's a situation you should know about. The news wasn't unexpected. Marcus Vance, serving his sentence in federal prison, had been found dead in his cell. Initial reports suggested natural causes, a heart attack brought on by the stress of confinement. Should we release a statement? Benjamin asked. No, Caleb decided. His victims deserve the last word. In his private office later, he reviewed the final reports on Marcus's death. The man who had once terrorized New York's financial world had died alone, unmourned, his legacy one of corruption exposed and punished. Catherine found him there, still reading. I heard about Marcus, she said, moving to his side. Are you all right? I don't feel anything, he admitted. No satisfaction, no regret. He made his choices, and you made yours, she reminded him. Look at what you've built instead of what you destroyed. She gestured to the screens showing their company's latest achievements. The ethical AI division had expanded globally. Their security protocols were becoming industry standard. The foundation had helped hundreds of fraud victims rebuild their lives. The board approved our new mentorship program, Catherine continued, pulling up the details. Focused on helping underprivileged students enter tech and finance. Breaking the cycle of power abuse. Caleb studied the program outline. It would give others what he'd never had. A legitimate path up, guidance, protection against predators like Marcus. We received an interesting letter, Evelyn announced, entering with a tablet. From Sarah. Caleb's expression hardened. What does she want? To apologize, apparently. She's working as a waitress in Newark. Says she's learned her lesson. File it, he ordered. Some lessons come too late. Catherine touched his arm. That's the difference between you and them. You learned from pain. They just suffered from it. Later that day, Caleb visited the Foundation's new training center. Young interns, many from backgrounds like his own, worked on projects designed to make finance more transparent, more ethical. Mr. Thorne, a young programmer named David, rushed up. The fraud detection algorithm caught another scheme. Some hedge fund trying to hide losses in offshore accounts. Like the Morgan case, Caleb noted. Exactly. But this time, no one lost anything. We stopped it cold. This, Caleb realized, was his true revenge. Not just punishing past crimes, but preventing future ones. Building safeguards that would outlast him. That evening, in their countryside home, Caleb and Catherine reviewed plans for their wedding. Their relationship had grown naturally, built on shared purpose and mutual respect. She'd never tried to soften his edges, only to direct his strength toward creation instead of destruction. The Foundation's new headquarters opens next month, she mentioned, reviewing their schedule. Elena Morgan is speaking at the ceremony. Full circle, he mused. From victim to advocate. Like you, she pointed out. From avenger to protector. Their home reflected this evolution. No cold opulence like his mansion with Sarah, but warm functionality. Space for work, for family, for building a future. Benjamin sent the latest security updates, Catherine continued, pulling up holographic displays. Our systems caught 3 insider trading attempts this week. The SEC is amazed. They shouldn't be, Caleb replied. We understand what drives corruption. That's why we can stop it. The next morning, Caleb addressed a new class of interns. Young faces looked up at him, eager to learn, to make a difference. You're here because you understand something crucial, he told them. Power without ethics is just another form of corruption. Technology without conscience is just another weapon. He moved through the room, observing their projects. Each one aimed at preventing fraud, protecting the vulnerable, ensuring transparency. When I started this company, he continued, it was about revenge. About punishing those who abuse their power. But you're building something more important, systems that make such abuse impossible. In his office afterward, Evelyn found him looking at the photo of his parents. They'd be proud, she said softly. Not just of what you've achieved, but of what you've become. A better version of what they taught me to be, he agreed. Strong enough to protect, not just destroy. The day ended with a board meeting where Catherine presented their latest innovations. Watching her, Caleb felt something he'd never expected: peace. Not the false peace of revenge satisfied, but the real peace of purpose found. Later, at home, they sat on their terrace watching the sunset. Their children played in the garden, growing up in a world already safer because of their work. Justice isn't just about punishment, Caleb mused, watching his family. It's about building something better from the ruins of what was wrong. Catherine squeezed his hand, understanding. He was still the man strong enough to destroy his enemies, but now he was also the man strong enough to build a better world. As night fell, Caleb Thorne looked at his life's new architecture. A company that protected the vulnerable, a foundation that helped victims rebuild, a family that gave his strength purpose. He had transformed his pain into power, and his power into protection. "The game is truly over," he said softly. "Now we build." The stars emerged above their home, witnessing the final evolution of a man who'd learned that true justice wasn't found in revenge, but in ensuring that what he'd suffered could never happen to others. His legacy would not be the destruction of his enemies, but the protection of future generations. And in that, Caleb Thorne found his greatest victory. Epilogue. 10 years later. The New York Times headline read, "Thorne Tech's AI system prevents largest financial fraud attempt in history." Below it, a photo showed Caleb Thorne, now 52, standing with his wife Catherine and their 3 children at the company's 20th anniversary celebration. Thorne Tech had transformed the financial industry. The ethical AI frameworks pioneered by Caleb and Catherine had become global standards, their fraud prevention systems protecting millions of investors worldwide. The company occupied a striking tower in Manhattan, its architecture reflecting its founder's journey from revenge to innovation. In his private office, Caleb reviewed the morning reports. Benjamin Carter, still his chief security officer, had flagged several potential fraud schemes their systems had caught and prevented. The Morgan algorithm caught another shell company network, Benjamin reported through the secure video link. Similar to Marcus's old tricks, but more sophisticated. "They're learning, but so are we. How many potential victims?" Caleb asked, his voice still carrying that edge of intensity that had never quite softened. "Estimated 3,000 retirees. Would have lost everything. Instead, they'll never even know they were targeted." Caleb nodded, satisfied. The same ruthless focus that had once destroyed his enemies now protected countless potential victims. His reputation hadn't diminished. If anything, it had grown. Corporate criminals feared Thorne Tech more than they'd ever feared Marcus Vance. Down in the R&D department, Catherine Thorne led a team developing next-generation security protocols. Her marriage to Caleb had created not just a family, but a technological dynasty. Their oldest daughter, Sarah, already showed her father's intensity and her mother's brilliant mind. "Mom!" Sarah burst into Catherine's lab, waving a tablet. "The quantum encryption test worked. We can detect fraud attempts before they even finish forming." Catherine smiled at her daughter's enthusiasm. At 16, Sarah had already earned early admission to MIT, following her mother's path, but with her father's driven nature. In another part of the building, the Thorne Foundation continued its work. Evelyn, though semi-retired, still served as chairwoman. Under her guidance, the foundation had helped thousands of fraud victims rebuild their lives and prevented countless others from becoming victims. The latest whistleblower case was successful, Evelyn reported during her weekly meeting with Caleb. Another firm trying to hide losses in crypto schemes. "The SEC is amazed at how quickly we caught it. And the victims?" Caleb's priorities hadn't changed. Fully protected. The foundation's legal team made sure they got everything back with interest. The foundation's headquarters displayed a wall of success stories. Among them, prominently featured, was Elena Morgan. She'd become a fierce advocate for financial security, working closely with the foundation to educate others about fraud prevention. "Your father changed the game," Elena told a group of students touring the foundation. "Before Thorne Tech, people like Marcus Vance could steal everything from families like mine. Now, they can't hide anymore." The legacy of Marcus Vance served as a warning to others. He died in prison years ago, unmourned and forgotten except as a case study in corporate crime. His victims had rebuilt their lives, many with help from the Thorne Foundation. Senator Reed, exposed and convicted, had also died in prison. His corruption had sparked a wave of reforms and financial regulations, many based on Thorntech's ethical frameworks. And Sarah? The years had not been kind. She worked as a waitress in Newark, living in a small apartment, her beauty faded, her arrogance broken. She'd written to Caleb several times over the years, seeking forgiveness, financial help, any acknowledgement. He never replied. Another letter from her, Catherine mentioned one evening at their countryside home. Same as always. Caleb didn't even look up from his work. File it with the others. His refusal to acknowledge Sarah wasn't about anger anymore. He simply saw no purpose in it. She'd made her choices, faced her consequences. The man who'd loved her had died the night she betrayed him. The Thorne children grew up understanding their father's complexity. He was stern but loving, demanding but supportive. They knew his story, the orphan who rose through sheer will, the betrayed husband who turned revenge into revolution, the man who transformed personal pain into global protection. Dad's different at home. Their middle child, Michael, once told a schoolmate. Still intense, but in a good way. He teaches us to be strong but right. The youngest, Emma, had her mother's technical brilliance and her father's sense of justice. At 12, she'd already designed a basic algorithm to detect bullying in school social networks. Their family life reflected Caleb's evolution. The home was warm but ordered, loving but disciplined. Catherine had never tried to soften him. Instead, she'd helped channel his strength into creation and protection. "You're still the most formidable man I know," she told him on their 10th anniversary. "You just build more than you break now." The tech world had its own legends about Caleb Thorne. Some said he could spot a fraud scheme just by looking at the numbers. Others claimed his ethical AI could predict financial crimes before they happened. The truth was more impressive. He'd created systems that made his personal involvement unnecessary. The best revenge, he told a graduating class at MIT, isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something they can't corrupt. Thorntech's influence expanded beyond finance. Their ethical AI frameworks were adapted for healthcare, preventing insurance fraud. Their security protocols protected voting systems. Their transparency algorithms safeguarded charitable foundations. The company's annual ethics conference became a global event. World leaders, tech giants, and financial experts gathered to discuss the future of ethical business. Caleb's keynote speeches were legendary, his intensity undiminished by time. "Ethics isn't weak," he declared at the 20th conference. "It's the strongest force in business. Ask anyone who tried to cheat our systems." His children attended these conferences, learning from both parents. Sarah focused on AI development, Michael on system architecture, and Emma on user protection. They represented different aspects of their parents' legacy. The next generation of Thornes, Businessweek wrote, combines their father's iron will with their mother's innovative brilliance. The future of ethical tech is in formidable hands. The Morgan family remained close to the Thornes. Elena's children, now adults, worked with the foundation. Their story of loss and recovery became part of the company's training materials. "Look at these numbers," Sarah enthused during a family dinner, showing her father new fraud prevention stats. "The systems caught 3,000 attempts last month. That's 3,000 families protected." Caleb nodded, proud but pushing for more. "How many did we miss?" "None that we know of," she replied with her father's confidence. "But I'm improving the detection algorithms anyway." The dinner table conversations in the Thorne household weren't typical family fare. They discussed quantum encryption over appetizers, debated ethical AI applications with the main course, and planned new protection systems for dessert. Catherine watched her family with satisfaction. Caleb hadn't changed fundamentally. He was still the same intense, driven man she'd first met. But his strength now built futures instead of destroying them. Their marriage worked because she matched his intensity with her own. In the lab, she was as uncompromising as he was in the boardroom. Together, they'd created not just a family but a revolution in ethical technology. "Remember when people said ethical business was an oxymoron?" she mused one evening. "Now they can't survive without it." The Thorne Foundation expanded its reach each year. Beyond helping fraud victims, it funded ethical business education, supported whistleblowers, and provided technical training for underprivileged students. Evelyn, though older, remained a guiding force. She'd watched Caleb evolve from an angry young man seeking revenge to a powerful force for change. But she noted that he never lost his edge. "You still scare people," she told him during one of their weekly meetings. "Good," he replied. "Fear of consequences drives compliance. We just automated the consequences." The company's success attracted enemies. Corrupt businesses, crooked politicians, financial criminals, all tried to breach Thorn tech systems. None succeeded. "They don't understand," Benjamin explained to new security team members. "Our systems work because they're built on understanding corruption. Mr. Thorn knows how they think because he destroyed people like them." The children grew up with security details, but not from fear of kidnapping. Caleb protected them because he understood power drew attention. They learned self-defense, cybersecurity, and situational awareness as naturally as other kids learn sports. "Dad's paranoid," Michael once complained. "No," Sarah corrected, "Dad's prepared." There's a difference. Their home remained a sanctuary, albeit a highly secure one. Cutting-edge security systems, designed by Catherine and enhanced by their children, protected their privacy. But inside those defenses, genuine warmth thrived. Caleb's studies still displayed the photo of his parents, now joined by family photos showing his own children's growth. He built the legacy his parents would have wanted, not just success, but meaningful change. "Your grandparents would be proud," he told his children, sharing stories of his own humble beginnings. "They taught me that strength without purpose is just violence. Purpose without strength is just wishful thinking." The tech world celebrated Thorn Tech's innovations, but insiders knew the real achievement was cultural. Caleb had made ethical business profitable. Companies either adapted to the new transparency or failed. The Thorn standards, as they became known, transformed corporate governance. Ethical AI wasn't just a department anymore. It was the foundation of modern business. As Caleb approached his later years, his influence only grew. The man who'd once plotted intricate revenge now designed systems that made such revenge unnecessary. His children would inherit not just wealth, but purpose. The next generation of Thorns, Catherine told a tech conference, won't have to fight corruption. They're building a world where it can't hide. The family gathered annually at their countryside home, reviewing the year's achievements and planning future protections. 3 generations of Thorns, each adding to the legacy. "Grandfather," Emma asked during one such gathering, "do you ever regret not forgiving Sarah?" Caleb considered the question carefully. "Forgiveness without change is just permission," he replied. "She never changed. She just failed." It was a harsh lesson, but a true one. The Thorn children grew up understanding that consequences were natural, not vindictive. Their father had built systems that prevented harm, but never flinched from enforcing accountability. As the sun set on another year of innovation and protection, Caleb stood in his home office, reviewing the latest global fraud prevention statistics. His company had transformed an industry. His foundation had helped thousands rebuild. His family would carry forward his principles of ethical strength. The legacy of revenge had become a legacy of protection. The man who'd risen from nothing had built something unshakable, and the architect of justice could look at his work and know that it would endure. "The game really is over," he murmured, echoing words from years ago. "Now we guard the future." In his office at Thorn Tech, surrounded by screens showing protected transactions and prevented frauds, Caleb Thorn allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He'd built something his enemies couldn't corrupt, his allies could strengthen, and his children would enhance. The architect had created his masterpiece, a world where justice wasn't just punishment, but prevention, where strength served ethics and power protected instead of exploited. And in that creation, Caleb Thorn found his truest revenge, a legacy that would outlast all memory of those who'd betrayed him. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.